Welcome to the second episode of the Don't Screw Up Your Kids podcast. I am Kalisha Washington. I'm your parenting BFF. I help parents plan with purpose so that we can raise kids who are happy, healthy, and whole. Now, this episode is going to be all about school and how we're partnering with our kids' schools to make sure that they have a great school year and are academically prepared for the future. Now, I want to start by saying many of you all are celebrating, right? You're glad that your kids are gone. The light bills are going to go down, right? The food, you won't have to stock as much. Teachers are probably a little bit sad, right? They had their last toast. But what are we going to do to make sure that your kids have a great school year? Your kids will spend the majority of their waking hours at the schools Monday through Friday, right? And although they're usually not there on the weekends, the amount of hours that they spend awake at the school on Monday through Friday is significant. So you want to make sure that your partnership with the school is solid. Now, some of us may be thinking, I had a previous kid come through here. We already had some problems, right? It happens. But what are we going to do about it? What we're going to do about it is we're going to reestablish a whole new relationship. Now, it doesn't matter what happened previously. We're given a clean slate. And we're going to walk through the front door and we are going to make a meeting with the principal, make a meeting with the teacher, right? And we're going to let them know, hey, I might have had a bad experience with you previously, but I want you to know that you have a clean slate with me and I'm asking that you give me a clean slate as well. Now, on that note, if you know that you did something wrong that you need to apologize for, handle that. Handle that. Okay? Don't pretend like it didn't happen. It happened. And oh, as an administrator, we remember. For you who may not know, I was an educator, I was a teacher, I was an administrator for many years, right? Spent well over a decade in education, both K through 12 and in higher education. So I've been on every side of this. I've been a parent for over 3 decades. So understand, I know both sides. I know both sides of this coin. And so I'm recommending that you go in and you own it. If you know that you needed to apologize for something that happened previously, go in and apologize. It's not going to hurt you any to apologize. And on that note, if you think that the other person should be apologizing to you for something that happened and they don't, give them a clean slate anyway, right? Wipe the slate clean anyway. That's called grace. They don't deserve it, but you're going to give it to them anyway. Why? Because you want your child to have the best possible school year. And this partnership is going to require that you give your absolute best. And sometimes you may have to give even more than you think you should because you want your child to have the best school year possible, right? So now that we got that out of the way, I want to talk about 5 things. One was partnership. We covered that. Number 2, I want you to calibrate your calendar with the school's calendar. So even before your kid steps foot on campus, you can take that calendar, usually on the school website. There will be a school year calendar. It'll say 2025 to 2026. Go in and write down all the holidays, write in all the days off, write in all of the breaks like Christmas break, spring break, things like that, summer vacation. So you know how to plan for those vacation periods that don't overlap with what the school has going on. If there's testing coming up, make sure you put that on the calendar. If those dates are already on the calendar, you want to make sure they're on your calendar because you want to, as the school will always ask you, make sure your kids go to bed early, make sure they get a good hearty breakfast, make sure they come to school early and they're prepared and they probably don't even use number 2 pencils anymore. Don't even get me started to lying, right? It's been a little while since I did some testing. However, whatever the situation is, you want to make sure that you have all those dates on your calendar. So nothing is a surprise. And if you want some bonus points, like I don't know if you have a paper calendar at home, if you have a wall calendar, any of those calendars work. But I always recommend that you put it into your phone because we're not leaving home without that phone. And then make sure that you always schedule a week before or a month before when you're planning out for the whole school year. Okay, make sure a week before you're getting a reminder so you don't forget. So you don't forget to go get the snacks and stuff that you need to get ahead of time. You got a reminder a week ahead of time. And you want to know if your kid has a special schedule, like they're playing sports. Put those dates in your calendar as well, up front, in advance, and ahead of time. Because if you have multiple children, you want to know, I have these 2 kids that are on in sports at the same in the same season, right? So in the fall, you may have somebody who's playing football and somebody who's playing volleyball. Well, you want to map those out on your calendar as well. So you don't have that overlap and you're missing both kids' sports. You want to make sure that you can work around, the other extracurriculars that you might have can go around the kids' schedule. But also you want to make sure that you can maximize if you plan to be present for your kids' schedules, you want to be there. And you don't want to have that overlap and no one's there to support them, right? Number three, kids with special needs. If you have children with special needs, even if they haven't been formally identified through the front door, right? Go and talk to the teacher about it. Talk to the administrator about it. If you feel like your child needs to be tested in writing, you want to put down, hey, I'm asking that my children get tested for special education. Sometimes you'll have schools that'll tell you to, oh, go get a note from the doctor. That's not required. You don't have to have a note from a doctor. All you have to do is put it in writing. This is federal. This is a federal law. Special education, the Individuals with Disabilities in Education Act, IDEA, you want to make sure that you follow what is required there. Now, some states may have some additional laws in addition to that. Some counties, some districts, you may be at a charter school. Any of those, they may have some additional special rules, but the overarching is by the federal government. So if you put in writing that you want your child tested, they have time limits and that starts the clock. Make sure you keep hold of everything you ever turn into the school. Get a binder just for the special education. And every single time they call you for a meeting, you need to show up. You need to show up. And now that we have Zoom, we have ways to do this virtually, you absolutely need to show up for your child, right? You don't want them to be able to write in the record that you didn't show up. Every single time there is something scheduled, you want to be able to be there. Now, if they schedule something at a time that doesn't work for you, you can say that. And the school can make accommodations. They can have meetings before school. They can have meetings after school. They can have them on the weekends if they want to, right? It may be harder to get that schedule because there are other people that have to be there. But usually schools are accommodating, especially if your child is struggling, because they want your kids to succeed just as much as you do. Now, if you know that your kid already had an IEP, let's say they're changing schools. Now, at the beginning of a school year, a kid coming in with an IEP, 30 days, they have to go through and read that and have a meeting with you, a preliminary to go over to ask any questions, anything like that. While we're talking about special education, I want to talk about medication. This is a big deal because a lot of people have different views on medication. I saw personally as an educator, there were parents who would come in and say, hey, I don't want my kid medicated because I put them on this medication and their behavior, they changed in this way. They were sleepy, they were dopey, they were, listen. And then what they'll do in response is just take them off the medication. Well, I don't recommend you do that. First of all, before you even get the medication, make sure you understand the side effects. Make sure you understand what's a temporary side effect versus a long-term side effect. I spoke to a friend of mine who's a nurse who's considering getting her child medication for ADHD. And she was saying it takes at least 2 weeks for that medication to get into the body and start to do what it's supposed to do, right? But in the meantime, there may be some other side effects. Now, you want to know what are the temporary side effects? Like day one, they might feel like this. Day two, they might feel like that. Make sure you ask those questions to the doctor. Make sure you also do as much research on the medication that they're offering as soon as you possibly can. We have artificial intelligence, right? I use ChatGPT for everything. Now, go on ChatGPT. Say, hey, Chat, my child was prescribed this many milligrams of this much. This is my child's height, weight, age, right? Give that information ahead of time because those things can vary the recommendation. And then when you want to ask them, hey, ask ChatGPT, what should I expect in terms of side effects? Short term, long term, what should I expect? Is there a danger? Is there a better prescription for this? Because if your child is having a negative response, you absolutely want to go back to your doctor and get either a different dosage or different medication because everything doesn't work for everybody the same way. And so you want to make sure that you go and get that calibrated. Now, I did not know until most of my experience as an educator was in low income communities of color. And oftentimes, like I said, I would have parents that would get their kid on medication, not like the way their kids' bodies responded to it immediately, right? Those first few days. And then they just stop giving it to them. They don't go back to the doctor. They don't go and get another prescription. And then I worked in a wealthier community with non students of color. And I had a lot of parents who were stay at home moms and they had more time on their hands, right? But what I saw that they did was they took their kids back to the doctor to find out, hey, this is how their bodies responded to it. Let's try something different. Is there a different prescription or should we try a different dosage? I tried this out for 2 weeks. This is how my kid responded, right? And take notes on how your child is responding to the medication so that you have something to share with the doctor and you can give them concrete evidence. I gave them this medicine for the first time on this day at this time. They didn't sleep all night. Right? Whatever it is that you need to share, you want to have that stuff documented so that you can give it to your doctor so your child can have exactly what they need. And I'm not saying that medication is always the answer. There's so many other things that can be the answer. And we're going to talk about them on this podcast. I will have a nutritionist coming in to talk about how the diet and exercise and things like that can impact a child's ADHD diagnosis, right? There's some things that we can do naturally, and I prefer that. But I won't say just completely rule it out because sometimes people do need medication, and if not forever, they may need it for a specific period of time. Now, while we're on the topic of special education, I know there are some people out there who say, do not let your kid get tested for special education. There is, I'm not even going to name the person, but very popular psychologist or educator. He says he has a PhD. I'm not naming names, but he's always saying, don't let them test your kid for special education. And I think that is the wrong approach. Here's why. If your child has a disability that is impacting their ability to learn, the school needs to know about it, number one, and the school needs to be held accountable to help your child have the success that they need to have in school. If they don't know about it, or if it's not documented, if it's not on paper, if it's not a federal law backing it up, then it could cause your child to have some additional problems that they don't need to have with the school. For example, some kids may have some impulse control challenges, right? And if they get into a fight, is it just that kid getting into a fight, or is it because their disability is causing them to have some challenges with managing their impulses? You want to make sure that if it is something that is related to their disability, it is documented in that way, and that your child is not just a bad kid who's out here starting fights and things like that. Honestly, let me go back. I do not believe in bad kids. I believe kids have different expectations and parents have different expectations, and school officials have different expectations on how a child should behave. And sometimes that's not communicated well enough, but I don't believe there are any bad children. But let's say if your kid it needs to have special education services, now you can hold your kid accountable, hold your school accountable to providing those services for your kid. And again, ChatGPT is your friend. If your child has an IEP, what I would do, and some people I know won't feel comfortable doing this, but what I would do is I would take pictures of the IEP, upload it to ChatGPT or the diagnosis, or you can type it in, or you can verbally read it in, right? So that you can give as much or as little information as you want to give. But I would say this is what they said. What are the ideal, um, oh, why am I not thinking of the word? What are the ideal responses to this behavior or to this disability? What are the accommodations or modifications that would best help my child be successful in school? Then you can compare and contrast with what ChatGPT said and what the school is saying. And even ahead of time, before you go to that IEP meeting, how about if you had some information from ChatGPT or from some other source that's telling you, hey, I want to know how to best help my child. What can be done to help my child be successful, right, in this school? And so when you're armed with that, because when I taught in the low income communities of color, guess what? They were not giving up any services. They were not giving up the services. But when I got to a wealthier community, then I found that those parents were asking for everything and were getting it. I didn't know that I could ask for an occupational therapist for a student with autism. I didn't know that we could ask for, a certain number of psychology sessions with the school psychologist. I didn't know that there were all of these services that we could ask for because they weren't being offered in the lower income communities. But when we got to an upper income community where people knew what they were talking about and knew what to expect, they were getting better services. So instead of not getting your child tested, you want to get your child tested. But you also want to make sure that the school is accountable for providing the services for your child when a disability has been identified. All right, number 4, you want to make sure the school has all of your contact information. Okay, I'm talking addresses. If your address changes, make sure you update it with the school. Phone numbers, email addresses. I always, when we filled out the emergency card, it would have maybe 2 lines for an emergency. I always wrote in the margin, added extras because I wanted to know in case of emergency, here are the 5 people I want my child released to. Here are the 7 people I'm okay with you releasing my children to. I was born and raised in Los Angeles. My children were going to school in Los Angeles. We have earthquakes periodically, not often. But in case of emergency, in case there's an active person on campus that shouldn't be, right? I wanted to know that everybody you could possibly call would be available. I had a situation in when I was assistant principal at a performing arts high school in Los Angeles. And there was someone who was in the community, a bad actor, right? And they were into it. Gang members were, some who were walking were into it with people who were driving by. And so shots were fired. One of my students was hit in the leg. He's okay. One of the teachers was hit in the arm. She's okay. But it was at lunchtime. Kids were everywhere. At this school, there was a Jack in the Box across the street. There was a Starbucks across the street. 11th and 12th graders were allowed to go off campus to eat if they wanted to. Some kids were off campus and stayed off campus. Some kids were off campus, ran inside when they saw. Some kids were on the playground. They were running into classes. We were nonstop. There was a cohort of us calling parents to let them know, give them updates, tell them what. We had auto calls that went out, but then there were some parents whose phone numbers weren't updated, whose email addresses we didn't have. There might have been a typo. It was complete chaos for a while, right? And trying to make sure that every kid was accounted for was difficult. And sometimes if you have one of those kids who may get in trouble, they may not make sure that the school has your information. They may intentionally make sure that the school is not calling your phone number in case of emergency. If they know they're planning on cutting class, they might not want to make sure that the school has your number, but you have a responsibility to make sure that the school has every phone number, every email address, every address, physical address that they need to have so that your kids can be safe, right? And then number 5, let me see. I can't even I can't even read my own handwriting about what I wanted to talk about. I can't even read it. One thing to I have no clue what that 5th thing was. Who does that? Who does that? Let me recap the 4. Maybe I'll remember the 5th, right? Number 1, introducing yourself to the staff members. Number 1, making sure that you're in partnership. You come in with the spirit of partnership. Number 2, making sure that you calibrate your calendar to make sure that all the events that are happening at the school you have access to. Number 3, kids with special needs, what to do for that. Number 4, making sure they have all of your contact information. And number 5, what? What is this? What is number 5? Oh my goodness. I am, I cannot believe this. Oh, I remember. Think positive. Think positively. Come in expecting your kid to have the best school year yet, right? Sometimes our thoughts and our words can become a self fulfilling prophecy. That's what I wrote on my notes. Self-fulfilling prophecy. What you don't want to do is be like, oh no, my kid has Miss So and so. I already know it's going to be a bad school year. You don't want to do that because you project that. And then everything that you see is in line with what you already believe about the school year. So you want to come in with an expectation that your kids are going to have the best school year yet. You want to know, you want to believe in your heart. And if you don't believe it yet, imagine it that way. Visualize it being that way. Visualize your kid having their best school year yet. Some of the things we never know how relationship between two people can turn around. And let me give you this example with my own child. My son, in the beginning of one school year, he had a teacher who had given us a form to fill out with the syllabus, and they got points if you signed it and turned it in. And so my kids would always every year say, "You don't need to read all that; just sign it." Right? I need the points. Sign it. No, absolutely not. I'm reading everything on here, and I don't care that we have 5 or 6 or 7 of these for each kid. I'm reading every single syllabus, right? I want to make sure that I understand everything that is expected of you, my child, and expected of me as a parent, right? But there was one teacher who had a section where she asked us to talk about how to best handle our kids. So I went in, right? I'm an educator. This is valuable information. I want to make sure she understands how to handle my kid. So I go in, I write in detail. Don't embarrass him in front of the class. If you need to correct him, go and, correct him one-on-one and talk to him so that he understands make sure that he understands exactly what you're expecting of him, because if there's a misunderstanding or miscommunication, it may be a problem. If you embarrass him in front of the class, it definitely will be a problem. So I let her know all of that. Well, the kids had gone to see the counselor the senior year of high school, and when they went to go see the counselor, there was a kid a few of the kids had gone, a few of the kids came back, and there were posters on the wall where the teacher had put the notes. So one kid put his notebook on top of the notes, and he's writing on his paper, right? He's covering the part that my son needs to see. And when he does that, my son nicely asked him to move his notebook so that he could see the part that he needed to see. The kid says no. My son gets louder, right? So now who the teacher hears is my son. He doesn't usually start things, but he usually finishes things, right? Don't start none, won't be none. But when the teacher corrected him from the front of the room to the back of the room, a chair went flying. Now, never excusing that, never excusing that poor choice in behavior, right? Wrong. He was completely wrong to do that. The teacher called me. She said, I'm looking through my paperwork to see, like, this is what happened. I was looking through my paperwork to see if you had filled out this part. Because most parents don't. They just sign their name and turn it in. She said, I see where you said this, this, and this. And she said, I didn't do that. I didn't follow what you asked me to do. And so he's getting suspended because he threw the chair, and he has to get suspended. She said, but I just want you to know that I'm sorry I didn't follow my part that I said I was going to do. Thank you for filling this out and giving me all this information. And I'm going to make sure from here on out, I follow this plan. I said, thank you so much. And my son deserves to be suspended for throwing a chair across the room. Somebody could have gotten hurt. So he did a suspension. At graduation, all of the students had an opportunity to thank their favorite teacher. Guess who he thanked? Yes, that teacher. And I said, isn't that the one you got suspended in her class for throwing a chair? He said, yes, that was her. He said, but for the rest of the school year, we never had a problem. Wow. That is the evidence of how you can turn a relationship around. That starts with coming in with that clean slate. Even though somebody messed up, we're all human, right? Some of us make mistakes. It's okay. Go ahead and give that clean slate. I didn't hold anything against her. My son didn't hold anything against her because she got it right for the rest of the year. It's not to say she couldn't have made another mistake. She could have. But what's going to be best to make sure your kid has the best school year? Now, my hope for you is that your child has the absolute best school year of all school years this year. And together, we're going to make sure that we don't screw up our kids. Now, hopefully, this was helpful to you. Hopefully, you found some value in what I had to say. Please comment in the chat what was most important to you, what stood out the most to you, what you liked most about what I said. Also, if you've had some challenges with your kids and you know, hey, I need some help with this, go ahead and put it in the chat. I have plenty of things that we're already scheduled to cover, but I want to make sure that I meet the needs of the people who are listening and subscribing to this channel. So, as we're talking about subscription, go ahead and subscribe to this channel. Like it. If you liked it, share it with another parent who needs to know about it. Also, encourage them to subscribe because my goal is to help meet everybody's needs who wants to be the best parent possible. Again, I am Kalisha Washington. I'm your parenting BFF. I help parents plan with purpose, so that we can raise kids who are happy, healthy, and whole. Have a great day.